Greetings and welcome aboard to the Heavy Metal Truckers. We are your hosts. I am Pincushion and this is Doppler. So in this video we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We're trying to come up with a solution considering that Skype is going away in a couple months or a little less than a couple months. So we're trying out some different things, different methods, see if this works just as good if not better. Hopefully, I know there's going to probably be some nuances to this, but we're going to see how it goes. Now, we are trying to come back from hiatus, and there's a chance that the hiatuses may occur again. I do not know, there's a lot of stuff up in the air right now, but we're doing what we can with this. So, to start this off, we are going back and we are going to our backlog of about, a year ago? Probably at this point.
Yeah, this request just came on one of our last videos.
Oh, on one of our... Which video?
Yeah. I think it was the Jaluka video.
Oh.
Oh. Yeah.
Well then, okay. Well, thank you. Who is the viewer?
It was Christopher John Farrer, something like that.
Alrighty, well then... To come back, we are doing one of our favorite segments where we hear from you guys from the pit. And from the pit, this track is... What is this track, sir?
I thought you had it pulled up.
I don't remember it. It's from Dexcore. It's Paramnesia, or something that sounds
something
like
that. Yeah, now we've done Dexcore before, people seen our channels, and we weren't the biggest fans of them. But this is a newer song and a request, so...
Newer track, a request.
Shot.
It's been a year or so since we've really listened to them, so maybe a year has done them some justice. Personally, I'm not holding my breath, but we'll see. I could be wrong.
Yep. But
all right,
now.
Let's see what we can do here. Alrighty then. I'll let you go first.
I'm actually kind of surprised because I didn't hate it. I wouldn't go as far as say as I loved it or that I overly enjoyed it or anything like that, but I didn't hate it. Now, there were definitely some things I didn't like around midway through the song, they had some, I don't know if it was like electronic or synthesized or what that
Mm-hmm.
was coming in, but it was kind of jarring. It almost distracted from the song for me because it was like there and I just, it like, especially with me with ADD, it would catch my attention and take me away from the song. I didn't care for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't remember. It's been so long since we listened to them. Had we ever heard him do cleans before?
That's what I was sort of thrown off by, because I wasn't exactly expecting it, as you'd be able to tell once like this is seen, but it definitely threw me off guard, mainly because not that it wasn't done well, but it seemed out of place for what was.
I don't know. I didn't feel like it was that out of place, and
So for what was going on and what they were doing, it was very unexpected. But for what they had going on, to me, that
I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, because they had a formula they were going with, and then all of a sudden, where'd that come from?
Yeah, it was more unexpected for me just because I don't think we had heard him do cleans
but
before.
again,
So
I'm not saying that it was. I'm saying that not that it wasn't done well. Like at that moment, that performance itself was done well. It just catches you off fucking guard.
It did. But I will say his cleans aren't bad. You know,
depending how much of that is actually him.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much was done in post-production.
Like, sorry, I like, this is what goes through my mind these days with clean vocals, because I know what they do.
Well, that, yeah, a lot, yeah, well, especially with a lot of them. There's not a single singer that sounds the same live as they do. Even if they sound live on stage, it's because they're still doing some stuff back on that soundboard to try to make it sound better.
Well, some groups, this is part of the reason why I still love Lamb of God, because I have heard them live and I've heard them on record, and they are the closest thing to a live group that I've heard. With the exception maybe a little bit of Avatar.
If you want to, yeah, that's true. He does sound a lot, but again, I don't know how much is going through the soundboard. Now, like, a good way to hear what a singer actually sounds like live is if you can get a hold of like their click track with the vocals on it. That is completely unedited vocals. You can really hear what they sound like.
Well, because I used to be part of URM Academy, which I was able to get multi-tracks to practice with. Granted, of course, there could have still been onboard gear where Randy's vocals was going through before it got to the actual multi-tracks, but I have heard Randy's vocals from before it's had post-processing done, and
there are some that are pretty close, but none of them sound exact.
Yeah,
they might be close enough to where just from you listening to them live with everything going on, you might not be able to really tell much of a difference, but nobody's going to sound exactly the same.
The only thing that might be done is adjusting a few frequencies that are necessary for live to avoid any kind of frequency interference from the monitors.
Yeah.
And then, like, the frequency interference from the monitors, it's what's adjusted for first, and then anything else from there that needs to be adjusted to sit well within the group is then done from there. So it really just depends on what kind of performance it is as well. Anyways.
Yeah, we got off track, but that's okay.
When do we not?
I know. Yeah, I know. You know. But anyway, yeah, his cleans weren't bad, especially for a metalcore band. Like a lot of metalcore bands, you can really hear the auto tune in their voice and everything.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit on this one, but not as much as you hear with a lot of them.
Yeah, or it was done so in a way that was actually well balanced, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And a lot of your
granted, well
complaints with a
balanced for
lot of
this day
metalcore
and age.
bands. Yeah, a lot of your complaints, a lot of these metalcore bands that do cleans as they come across is a little pop sounding.
Yeah.
His to me sounded more rock or punk than they did pop. Personally.
They did, but it still goes off. It still goes with the pop punk.
A little bit, but I like in some songs you listen to, I find it far more grating or annoying than I did in this one.
Yeah. Granted, it does still go more along lines of old school metalcore, where whenever they would do cleans, then it would sound like that.
Now for the most part, at least from what I could hear, mind you, for whatever reason the sound isn't perfect on here because of the volume. But from what I could hear, instrumentally, at least guitars and drums and the breakdowns and everything were pretty typical metalcore. At least what I call the cores anyway.
Yeah, because there's gonna be some differentiation that I'll be able to tap into on that.
Yeah, you could hear it better than I could. But I mean, for what it was still good. Like out of, at least from what I can remember, the songs that we've listened to, this was probably the one that I disliked the least.
Mm-hmm. For me, maybe it was partially because I went into it expecting the worst, to be honest. Because whenever he told me what it was that we were listening to, or what was recently requested that we wanted to go ahead and do, I just went, God damn it. Because
You did too.
I didn't like...
Yeah, we weren't really fans of what we had heard.
They're good for what they are, but they're not for us.
Yeah.
And I kind of went into that mentality, like, just go through it, just take a listen, just give your thoughts and perspectives like people ask of us. And so I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Wait, what? And I'm like, listening to the groove of it. I'm listening to the structure they start off with, which is solid. It is comprehensive. It is modern djenting in some aspect. However,
there I did get some of that. Yeah,
there it was prevalent majority of the way throughout. But what I appreciated and what I hope I can continue to see within the more so deathcore genre, because they are like, or gencore, I don't know what the fucking kids are calling it these days.
I don't know.
But within this,
I just call all of it metalcore because it's easier for me.
within this structure of what it is, there was a good amount of distortion to balance out.
That I could hear. That's a good point. Yes.
There was a great deal of distortion to maintain what they were trying to do with some of the clean aspects that were heard within the lower notes of the djenting. That it's clean enough to where you could hear like just some kind of, like, literally djenting to me is some dude with the banjo discovered distortion and decided, let's see what we can do. That's what it sounds like to me, and it has from the very first day I heard it. It sounds like just backcountry gone metal, or trying to get into deathcore or something of the sort. That's what it sounds like. It's just loose tension, lower tunings, and cleaned up so you can actually hear the mid-range in it, which is mid-range is necessary, but it's so cleaned up. However, again, like I said, the distortion was there, very likely caused by an excellent dialed in bass sound, because you cannot have heavy without properly tuned bass. And by tuning, I don't mean just tuning as in pitch, but tuning in as in dialed in for the mix. And this was done exceptional. I was not offended by it much. As Doppler is aware,
if for Gent it wasn't terrible.
Up until they went to the 09, 2010, maybe 08 emo scene metalcore style vocals, and just honestly that whole section wasn't just the vocals, it was just the instrumental. Everything went to that scene of that metalcore, that culture of metalcore from back in the day. Up until that point, I would not be offended if I heard that in the background, or if that came on a playlist and I had to listen to it while I was doing chores or whatever. It actually was done well, and I applaud them for their efforts and what they did. I did not like, however, granted, I'm still recovering from Jaluka, because that was just a hodgepodge of, I don't know what the fuck that was. Like, it was way too much. And it was, how ADD tweaker can we get to get someone like that in a studio and just go fucking bananas? And that's just what it felt like to me. And
yeah, it's like they tried to experiment, but tried to do too much experimentation in one song.
Exactly. And again, if you like that, that's perfectly fine. No issue with that. But from our perspectives, as we mentioned multiple times, the breakdowns in this is kind of predictable. We all know this, but I mean,
yeah, they all had the same kind of breakdowns.
They all had
two of them in this song.
Yeah, they did. Now, I will say I was very pleased with how they came out of it and how everything sounded, because it almost reminded me of older Whitechapel, and I'm like, wow, because it was almost a wrapping of what death metal, with the deathcore death metal vocals, or it's just, I guess you could say rapping in a sense, or what I would consider that for this genre, but even that was done well. And I normally can't stand that, but again, like, Whitechapel for me is who really pioneered modern deathcore, even though it's gotten so far off from what it was, and it's an absolute shit show to me now.
Yeah.
But Whitechapel laid the foundation for what deathcore should have been. Granted, some people will say Suicide Silences did so as well, but even Mitch was like, this is not deathcore to me, this is just metal or death metal. That's all this is. If you want to categorize it as that, that's on you. But I was not offended necessarily by this, with the exception of some of the clean vocals. Oddly, for me, it wasn't. It was done well, but for me, it could have been. This track could have been really fine without it. The breakdowns, like I said, they were predictable, but they weren't done bad. I mean, they still had a solid foundation, a solid structure. Breakdowns are an experiment for the listener. What are they going to do to either make this heavier or kind of go a little experimental and go potentially chaotic? Like, breakdowns were a great thing in the past, because it was always, is the musician going to, or the performer going to do something wild that blows our minds and takes us to a new level within this experience? And that's what we use. That's what the core kids, at least for myself, back in the day, that's what we thoroughly enjoyed, was listening, just kind of waiting in anticipation to see, just get delved into it, and then what kind of chaos will ensue. Cow Decapitation was great for that. Even though they're way
One thing I will... Oh,
Mhm.
sorry. One thing I will say I did like about, or glad that they didn't do with the breakdowns, is they didn't do that extremely, like when they went into it, they didn't go into that extremely slow, sludgy breakdown. Because
Yeah.
so many of these metalcore bands, or any kind of the cores, whatever, that will do that. In some songs, it feels completely out of place.
It
And
is.
it kind of ruins the immersion, and I'm glad they didn't do that here.
Well, part of it...
I mean, yes, it slowed it down, which is fine, but they didn't go like that ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Well, I know what you mean, and part of that is because the best way I can describe it is, you're potentially back in the 80s, 90s, how rap battles occurred, and it was who can have the best written lyrics at the drop of a hat, doing whatever we can, and just they would go off of each other. This is what is occurring within like the whole breakdown scene. For a while there, it was who could go slower, who could be most comprehensive within that, but also, can we do something insane for like 2 seconds and then just go right back down to just a pitfall of slowness, and let's see who can drag out the notes longer. It was a breakdown battle, and that's why part of the reason for a while there they were going slow as possible, just because who can do it better.
Yeah. And I get that, but like I said, some songs it contrasts too much.
It contrasts too much, and it goes against what psychoacoustically we can perceive and what will interest us outside of the niche that likes that.
Yeah. So I was glad they didn't do that here.
Yeah, so
I'll give them props there.
Yeah, again, overall, I am quite impressed with this. Maybe it's because I went into it
Like I said,
the
I was
worst.
surprised. I didn't hate it.
Yeah,
you know,
it was well done, and could I go out and listen to this again on my own? I want to say probably not, but it would be one that I would not be ashamed to show someone, as in, here's an interesting aspect or an interesting part of the community and scene that I'm part of, or like a subset of that community. Like if someone's like, well, what's the wild or craziest thing that like someone within your community will do, or like anything of the sort like that, and I would have no issue showing them this, just because it is an aspect of our metal community and it is an aspect of the subset of our culture. And it's done so well. And if they like that, then cool. Then hey, here's some more that either go along that same path, or they go a bit more avant-garde, a bit more experimental, a bit way off the cuffs to where it's not necessarily for us, but you might actually enjoy it.
Yeah, I think another good way to put it too is, it may not necessarily be a song we would go out and purposely listen to it on our own, but if we were like on Spotify or Pandora or something and doing like a shuffle of bands and it popped up, we wouldn't necessarily skip it.
No,
Like
I honestly could not see myself skipping it. I would just, I know whenever I'd go to the clean vocals, I would just have the face of, all right, it's over.
And you know, even though I agree with you, especially in metalcore, those kind of vocals have gotten kind of cliche and just like everybody's doing or whatever.
As much as they used to, because now, especially
no,
with
they
like,
don't. I will say that.
Yeah, Architects, Periphery, they've started actually kind of going into more like just general vocal compression, which I'm so thankful for. I hated, because for a while there, it was just who could have the highest pitch vocals and who could have the most melody within that and just make it. Yeah.
Yeah, and but for that, I didn't hate his voice.
Yeah. But anywho, yeah, thank you
Christopher
Robin?
John Fair
Oh.
or something like that.
Okay, Christopher. Thank you. We will put a thingy down here where it shows your name as a shout out, like, yay! You
Yeah.
recommended this to us. All right. Or I'll be in a next little ending scene to this. But anyways, do you have any final notes on this?
Not that I can think of.
Cool. Neither do I. Anyways, until next time, peeps. Send us more requests if you so choose to, and we will see you in the next one. And keep rolling heavy.